Drive Time on RTE Radio 1, sponsored by Zurich. We believe small actions can have great impact. Take a small action today. Speak to a financial broker about a Zurich pension.
There were terse and tense exchanges, I should say, in the Dáil earlier as Sinn Féin leader Mary Lou McDonald and An Taoiseach Micheál Martin clashed over the latest report from property website daft.ie, which I'm sure you looked at today, which found that rents have increased by 7% over the past year, as the supply of properties at the same time continues to dwindle. So far, the government has introduced 5 pieces of legislation to respond to the rent crisis, and yet it stands accused of recycling policies that favour developers, wealthy investors and big landlords over ordinary people. Well, to discuss this, I'm joined now from our Dáil studio by Eoin Ó Broin, Sinn Féin's housing spokesperson, and from Leinster House by Senator John Cummins, Fine Gael's Seanad spokesperson for housing. You're both very welcome to the programme. I might start with you, John Cummins of Fine Gael, first of all, because I'd really love to hear your perspective on why you believe the average rent has more than doubled in the decade Fine Gael has been in power.
Well, look, I'm not for one second going to say that there isn't a challenge in terms of rents. We have seen increases across the board, and that's demonstrated by the Daft report. We have introduced rent pressure zones in the country. About 75% of the entire country is now covered by a rent pressure zone. We moved a number of months ago to link rents to the harmonised index of inflation, and we're now moving with legislation coming into the Seanad next Tuesday to actually put a cap on that of 2%.
I know that. I know what you're proposing to do, and I know about the rent pressure zones and the rent caps and so on. But Fine Gael has been in power for more than a decade now. And I'm just wondering, you were the Seanad spokesperson on housing. Why has rent doubled in that time?
Well, certainly in certain areas of the country it has come off an exceptionally low base, but I do acknowledge that we have seriously high rents, particularly in our urban centres, and that's why we have introduced rent pressure zones, and that's why we are going to put a cap of 2% on rent increases with legislation coming in next Tuesday.
Do you not have an explanation?
In terms of rent increases, rents will increase. There's an issue in terms of supply and demand. We've had a restricted housing market in terms of the supply of housing. When Fine Gael came into government, we were building 4,600 houses a year. Thankfully now we got to 20,500 last year. The commencements between September of last year, a rolling 12-month period to September this year, shows that commencements are now at over 30,000, which is very positive indication in terms of supply. But obviously, at any time when you have a constrained market, be it in terms of supply, in terms of owner-occupiers or rents, you are going to have increases.
Okay,
but that's
so
why the government
that's
why the government has stepped in. That's why we put rent pressure zones in place, and that's why we're going to put a cap in terms of rent increases of 2%. And that legislation is before the House next Tuesday.
Eoin Ó Broin of Sinn Féin, let me bring you in, because you're claiming in the Dáil time and time and again, whenever you get the chance really, and again today, that the coalition's policies favour developers, they favour wealthy investors and big landlords over the ordinary person or the ordinary worker. But Housing for All, the new plan, was only unveiled last September. You're a bit previous, are you?
No, because it's based on exactly the same policy prescriptions as its predecessor, Rebuilding Ireland, and indeed housing plans before that. To answer the question you asked, John, why have rents increased 36 quarters in a row, 9 consecutive years of rent increases? The first is because despite all the promises, the last government and now this government aren't investing either in the first instance at all or in the last year to a sufficient level in state-led, genuinely affordable rental accommodation. The second is because...
They say they are, and I can give you the numbers that they're proposing as well if you wish.
Well, the real issue, of course, is how many they will deliver. So the last government promised to deliver 6,000 affordable units of accommodation up to 2021. Not a single one was delivered. Darragh O'Brien promised to deliver 390 affordable cost rental units this year. Parliamentary questions to me only a week or two ago will say they'll only hit about 100.
COVID now, the pandemic, in fairness, we have to be realistic on O'Brien.
Next year, their target for genuinely affordable homes to rent or buy funded by the state is 1,250. Nowhere close to enough. The second reason why we've had almost a decade of rent increases is because the fiscal policies, the tax breaks to certain categories of investors, coupled with the very bad planning changes by Owen Murphy, have incentivised the wrong kind of investment. So on the one hand, we've lost over 20,000 rental properties over the last 5 years, mainly accidental and semi-professionals. Government has no plan to deal with that. And the new kind of investment that's coming in is the wrong kind. It's far too expensive. It's pushing up land prices and development costs.
Okay, can I put that to John?
Let me make this point because it's very important. The third reason why rental prices are going up is because the government hasn't been delivering enough social homes. It has been over-relying on the private rental sector, subsidised through HAP, 60,000 such tenancies to meet social housing need, and that is absorbing a lot of what little private rental sector stock is there.
Again, in fairness,
so everything the government is doing is making the plan worse.
Was only unveiled last month or September.
Yes, but again, if you take that last point I made, the last plan, Rebuilding Ireland, was looking to add about 15,000 subsidised private rental social housing tenancies through HAP a year. That's roughly the same in the current plan. Social housing output, it's roughly the same in the new plan over the next 5 years as it was meant to be under
but it's
Fine
a
Gael
different
and the National Development Plan.
Owen.
But the housing plan and the housing policy are the same.
It's a different minister.
If you
Fianna
don't,
Fáil are in power, they say they have a different approach.
It makes no difference, Cormac, if you change the names of the men or women in government. If the policies remain the same, they'll produce the same results, which is an undersupply of affordable homes for working people to rent or buy and rising house prices and rents. The policies are wrong. They have been for a decade. And in the new housing plan, there is nothing significant of change to convince me that anything is going to improve in the short term.
John Cummins, let me bring you. You're incentivising the wrong type of property. It's too expensive.
Well, I think we need to be honest with people here. Owen talks about social housing delivery. The reality of the matter is 39,524 social homes were delivered between 2016 and 2020. And Sinn Féin, in their own manifesto in 2015, said that they would deliver 36,500 in the period up to the end of 2021. We'll have delivered 50,000 social homes in the period that Sinn Féin said that they would deliver 36,500. And yet we stand accused of not having an impact in terms of social housing. We are making progress in terms of social housing, and we will do the exact same in terms of affordable
Their delivery
housing.
is bigger than your target.
No, because Sinn Féin substantially revised our targets in 2016 on foot
of... It's convenient to revise your targets. They were 36,500. Be honest with the public.
On foot of... In 2016, Sinn Féin revised our targets on foot of a cross-party... John, if you'd have the courtesy to let me answer.
But hang on a second, Owen. It is much easier, as John says, to revise a target than to actually deliver housing. And that's what they've done, they say.
Let me make the point I wanted to make before both John and yourself interrupted me. 2016, there was a really important cross-party, a Oireachtas committee on housing and homelessness that looked at all of these issues. We made, and I was one of a number of members, a cross-party set of recommendations to government and opposition that all parties had to revise their targets. That was before Rebuilding Ireland came in. Sinn Féin revised our targets on foot of that expert group report.
And what was your target?
To an output, John, if you'll have the courtesy to let me finish, 10,000 real social homes delivered every year from 2016
on. Okay, so respond to this,
Owen. That is exactly what the government
with respect, Owen, would you say then,
ever delivered.
Owen, would you say then that hang on, John, please, pre-2016 you got it wrong?
No, pre-2016, both ourselves and the previous government were working on outdated data. That Housing and Homeless Committee report, and I was part of that, as were colleagues from John and other parties, recognised that the situation had changed. That became the benchmark from then on. And what's really significant is Rebuilding Ireland...
Pre-2016, no matter what you say in terms of revision, you got it wrong. You changed course then in terms of your targets. And that is exactly what you're accusing the previous Fine Gael government of, surely.
both points, Cormac, are wrong. When new evidence is provided, particularly from a cross-party report, all people have a responsibility to adhere to it. But Fine Gael didn't take on the recommendations of that report. They fell 40% shy of it and failed to provide sufficient social housing. We need 140,000
but you're giving wrong
social
information
homes,
to the public. You're giving inaccurate information to the public.
That Fine Gael have delivered to date.
You're giving inaccurate information to the public, and I don't know whether it's an attempt to give deliberate misinformation or whether you're not actually aware of the figure zone. But we're on track to deliver 50,000 social units in the period 2016 to the end of this year. That is huge progress in terms of delivery of social homes.
Okay, you've made that
point.
We're
now focusing
Can I ask
in
you,
terms
John,
of affordable and cost rental delivery.
Can I ask you, John, about another point that's being made by Sinn Féin in the Dáil for a number of days now, and that is that the government is, and I'm paraphrasing here, but Mary Lou McDonald has used words to this effect, that the government is cozying up to cuckoo funds or international investment funds, and that they're going to meet international investment funds that are interested in the Irish property market, or that may be at some roadshow soon. What's happening here?
To be honest, I just think this is another example of Sinn Féin trying to generate cheap headlines. I think we need to be honest with the public. You know, the state will continue to play a central role in the delivery of social and affordable homes, but we also have the private sector that has to play their part. We have 90,000 social homes that will be delivered out to 2030, 36,000 affordable purchase, 18,000 cost rental, but there has to be 156,000 private homes for purchase or rent.
Hang on a second.
And it seems that Sinn Féin are looking to restrict private sector investment into the housing sector.
Can you clarify or not one thing for me? Are government ministers going to meet cuckoo funds in the next couple of weeks?
That is a term that is used and bandied about by Sinn Féin.
You know what I mean.
I don't believe so, but what I do believe is that the government will be absolutely trying to attract investment into the housing market, because we do need private sector investment, and anybody that says that we don't need private sector investment and that the state can do it alone is wrong.
Okay, so what's the central accusation here, Eoin O'Brien?
Over ideology here.
What's wrong with bringing in private investment if it delivers more housing?
So there are two types of investors in the residential property market. There are investors who buy land, secure planning permission and build good quality homes to rent or buy. No problem with that, and I'll support it all day long. That's not what Fine Gael have been incentivising over the last number of years. They've been incentivising a different category of investor who don't actually buy land, employ contractors, build anything. What they do is they wait until other people have built homes. And because of the sweetheart tax deals that they got from Michael Noonan when he was finance minister, and Pascal has continued, they swoop in and they buy up entire estates, and they can pay far more for the properties than, for example, approved housing bodies, councils, or indeed purchasers. They inflate the price of land, they inflate the price of homes, and they make housing less affordable for everybody. So my question is a very simple one, because the story that was released not by Sinn Féin but by very good investigative journalism by Craig Hughes of the Mail on Sunday through an FOI is that because officials in the Department of Finance and Housing felt that the move against such cuckoo funds, and that phrase was first used by Darragh O'Brien in opposition, now the Minister for Housing, because that caused such public controversy over Mullen Park in Maynooth, where this fund, who wasn't adding anything new to the Irish market, they were purchasing at higher prices homes that should have been sold to working families. Because they were unnerved by the stamp duty increase, albeit modest, of 8% early in the year, that the two Ministers of Finance and Housing should go round to these same funds and reassure them, oh no, things are okay.
And John
I want to know what category of investor, the government is going to be meeting.
What is saying.
Okay,
this is
you
about
reject
delivery
that,
over ideology. You know, we have to look at every type of investment here. I'm not hung up on who builds homes, be it councils, approved housing bodies, the Land Development Agency, public-private partnerships or private investment, as long as homes get built.
Okay, you say
and
that's
what
not happening.
The public
Senator
want.
John Cummins of Fine Gael, thank you very much indeed. Eoin O'Brien of Sinn Féin, thank you as well.